Well, welcome to COVID-19 threats and attack vectors. This is a deeper dive quick look. My name's Tom Kirkham. I'm founder and CEO of IronTech Security. As some of you already know, we do these deeper dives, which are a deeper dive into mostly the concepts that we introduce in what we call our big webinar. We've done a lot for bar associations and national and state water association, rural water associations, maybe some other water associations. I know I've done other ones in person. But that webinar is an hour long, and it blows a lot of people's mind, the information they get. It blows my mind that we can build a series of webinars around individual topics within that webinar of 30 minutes. And some of these take longer than 30 minutes to cover, and I have to shorten them, and we go over a little bit. This particular one is not part of the main webinar in that it's about COVID-19 threats and attack vectors. And so we're going to kind of be laid back on this one. It's going to be a little different deal. So if you want to say something or you got any comments, questions, or whatever, just like always, put it in the chat box. But we are going to cover what's going on. Oh, am I garbled, Kenzie?
Yeah, you are just a little bit.
Let me see if I'm going to have to kill the show for just a minute. Thanks for letting me know that, Irene. I'm going to kill the PowerPoint off. I had to reboot before the first one. I bet this will fix it.
Okay.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Or getting better?
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Okay. All right. We'll start it up. Okay. So that's probably why we lost a couple of attendees. The sound was bad. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right. So this one's a little current events, right? And, but we thought it's kind of trending topics right now. The reason it's so short today, it's only 6 slides, and counting this one, is because it's such a fluid environment around cybersecurity and COVID-19. And obviously, you can understand why. It's just new things being discovered every day. So what do we know? This is what we've seen, say, between February and the latest month that we have data for, probably May, June-ish. We are seeing a huge increase in all types of attacks, okay? So for example, in February, there were 5,000 phishing attacks. I don't know if that's per day or whatever, or maybe 5,000 threat actors doing phishing attacks. I think that's what it is, around COVID-19 in February, but 200,000 in April. So now there's going to be even more. And we're going to get into some more details of the examples and things like that in another one. And your head will start spinning when you think about all the different exploits. The World Health Organization and CDC are seeing at least a 500% increase in attacks. And this scenario is not unique to COVID-19. We saw increases with the Zika virus. The one that I remember particularly was the Indian Ocean tsunami that happened in 2004. That's hard to believe, it's been 16 years ago. But when that was just a horribly tragic event. I think it's the worst national disaster in my lifetime. 200,000 people died. If it's not the worst, it's way up there. I think it might have been more than that, from a tsunami of all things. So there were all these scams going on. And so, if you listen to the regular webinar and you do the deeper dives and stuff, that's what I talk about. The vast majority of these involve a con artist that happens to be using a computer to facilitate the con, right? So every time there's a major disaster or some sort of major issue in the world, these things spike up. Now, what's really unique is this is the first time where we have many different things happening at once. We've got social unrest, a pandemic, a presidential election, and all sorts, and the polarization of this tribal mentality all around the world. It's not just a United States thing. It's really kind of happening globally, although it's a serious problem here in the United States. All of these things are occurring simultaneously. So we're looking at serious opportunities for nation states to increase chaos, for con artists to scam people out of money or data or whatever they can sell on the dark web. A big increase in ransomware that is using a COVID hook, and we're going to talk about that. But they recycle these around different things, and they're always going on. But it's kind of like they're like sub headlines in the newspaper where there's just enough people that know about it to where they can exploit it and make the numbers all fit, right? So it's a numbers game. Right now, everybody's in the whole planet's worried about the pandemic, so that's an easy one, you know. So they're exploiting it, but some of the same techniques used for the Zika virus are just changed up, and now it's around the COVID-19 virus. So what kind of attack vectors are we seeing? Well, of course, there's email scams. They're exploiting this work from home thing, like online shopping, sending emails that have shopping verifications, and a lot more people are buying a lot more stuff from Amazon and Macy's and all these other online shops. So especially in the case of Amazon or Overstock or, you know, these larger ones, you can build a whole scam around your item is out of stock, be vague about it, but put all the Amazon logos on it, link it to a malicious website. Bam, you're downloading ransomware. There are emails going out that show graphical representation of where hot spots in this COVID-19 outbreak is. It appear to be from the CDC. They had a lot of successful exploits in that vector. There have been websites and emails that are announcing new vaccine developments, or here's a new vaccine that appears to be from the CDC or wherever it may be. Once again, those are going to they may have a payload, or they're going to send you to a malicious website. Another attack vector with everyone working from home. And if you've got people working from home in your organization and they're signing into even if they're not signing into the office, but particularly if they're signing into the office and you don't have a VPN and you don't have multi-factor authentication turned on, you're just asking for trouble. So call us and ask us about that and see, we'll tell you where you are and what you need to do to fix it. And then another problem with that is if you let kids on your home computers, I don't care, especially if it's company property, you shouldn't do that. That should be prohibited by the company. But if they're using their personal computer and you've got a VPN to connect to a remote desktop and you're doing the right things, the problem is that home computer now is a vulnerability on your office network. Now, what happens to home computers? They get infected. You've got multiple family members using them sometimes. Kids getting on there, downloading all kinds of stuff. It is a serious threat to a corporate network. And I think we have one person in our company that's not using company property to work remotely, but we still put our security tools on his computer and he knows what he's doing. So I'm not saying no one on the call knows what they're doing, but we are experts. So it was a little less risky. I didn't like it, but it made sense. For that reason, you got that whole home network. So it's not just the PC that's accessing remotely. It's everything else that's on the network too. So we are seeing, and we have seen, and everybody's familiar with all the vulnerabilities in Zoom. Here's the deal about that. You know, everybody thinks that Windows PCs they're a lot less secure. And in some ways they are, but that's not the big deal than Macs, right? Macs don't ever get viruses. Well, there's a good reason for that. There are some slight architectural differences in a Mac that helps it not get a virus. But the big reason is the criminals make more money by hacking Windows boxes. Mac doesn't even have 10% of the market share. I think it's more like 5 or 7 or something like that. And if you're going to go to the trouble of, writing a virus to make money, do you want to only go after 5% of the market? No, you're going to write it for Windows. That's the big dog. Now, if Mac was selling more than Windows, it would be the one that's everybody's got to have a security solution on and all of that. That's the only thing that really makes Mac safer. It does have vulnerabilities. They're always doing security patches. Now, as far as Apple's phone, iPad, television, they're devices that run on iOS. Those are seriously more secure than Android devices are. But that's the exception to it. They built iOS from the ground up, and it's totally controlled by Apple. And you can only put an app on an iOS device if it's approved and vetted by Apple. That's not true with Mac OS, and it's certainly not true with Android. So they have so much control over the ecosystem that it has happened, but it's rare that apps with malware get inside the App Store. And they've siloed off the apps in such a way. This is an architectural technical thing, but just the architecture of iOS lends itself to a lot tighter security. So always buy Apple stuff. Everybody's got opinions on that. Windows is just great. And if you've been using that for years, just stay with it unless you really want to go through some agony like I did. So besides Zoom, the mobile exploits are diversifying, and especially in the Android world, but you have to think laptops are mobile too. But these exploits are diversifying and being used for a number of different things. We're seeing a significant spike in attacks on public file sharing networks, Dropbox. There's scads of them out there. I know Datto's got one. Anyway, these sites that you just send a link to somebody, Google Drive, you just send a link to somebody and they've got access to it. Well, if you're not practicing good security practices, complex password, unique credentials, those can be brute forced. And the next thing you know, there's information being obtained from it. And especially work from home stuff, right? So it's related to the remote workforce stuff. And because of what we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter, what's the white supremacist stuff, all of the social chaos in conjunction with the presidential election and other political elections coming up. It's an important election for us. China, Russia, Iran are actively trying to exploit that for chaos and make it worse than what it is, because that's in their best interest. So in addition to the pandemic, we have to worry about that as well. So this one fascinated me the most because I've done a few webinars about these ransomware kits that you can buy on the dark web. So if you want to distribute ransomware, you get this software and it asks you all the questions. How much do you want the beginning ransom to be? How often do you want it to double or go up? And how long do you want to give them to pay you? And do you want to do anything else on the network? And you just click a few mouse clicks and you've got a payload ready to deploy. And there's a whole set of criminal industry for the servers, because if I'm going to deploy ransomware and I don't want to use my own server, I've got to hire somebody's encryption server. So there's criminal organizations that, here's a server, here's you an encryption server, so I pay them a little money. Their server's automated to tie into the software kit, and it keeps track of all the keys for me. All that's automated. Now we're seeing these software development kits that lets you build COVID-19 specific attacks. And let's see, I've got some data here. It says here that, okay, here's one that you can, there's a software kit to build this, okay? It basically does a poisoned email attachment disguised as a distribution map of the virus's outbreak, and you can buy this kit for between $200 to $700. Some of these are for Android. So there's one called COVID Lock that targets Android. The ransom demands $100 in Bitcoin in 48 hours and threatens to erase contacts, pictures, and videos, as well as your phone's memory. Looks like an unlocked token has reportedly been discovered for that one. Another thing that we're seeing is scams for face mask, either non-legitimate websites or just blast emails, and they never deliver product and gather credit card. I mean, you can just imagine if you think you're on a real honest business site and you actually purchase something from that, what kind of information are they going to get? So research is indicating a company called Checkpoint, they're well known as a security vendor in our space. They are seeing a huge increase in COVID-19 related domains. And during the period that this increased, these COVID-19 related domains are 50% more likely to be malicious than other domains registered in the same period. Okay, follow that? What they found is of 1 point, and this is mind-boggling, in this period, which is like 3 or 4 months, 1.2 million domains were registered containing COVID-related keywords, actually between March and April. And at least 86,000 of them were classified as risky or malicious. Okay? There's fake websites impersonating the Center for Disease Control and creating unique domain names to the CDC. So make sure you're on and they're really clever with those domain names. Like sometimes they'll use an M instead of an IN. So you just glance at it and you don't see those little small characters. Just little clever things like that. So it looks like the real site. Look, I can duplicate practically any website on the internet that will almost be perfect in under an hour. In fact, a lot of them I can do. Smaller banks, regional banks, I've done those while waiting to speak. You know, they're introducing me to speak and I'm building it from scratch right then and there because I wanted it to match perfectly to that day's website. I'm talking 5 minutes, got a fake website ready to deploy. So it's real easy to do that stuff. There's also Absolute Software is reporting that, let's see, wait a minute, I lost my train of thought here, or lost my place. They're asking for passwords and Bitcoin donations to fund fake vaccine research. That was a little bit different. Now, because of the work from home, we're finding devices that are way behind on patching schedule. And because of work from home, there's been a 46% increase in the number of items of sensitive data on enterprise endpoints compared to pre-COVID-19 levels. Now, what that means is because of work from home, mostly because of work from home, these enterprises, these larger companies, they all of a sudden went from having to worry about 50,000 endpoints to 80,000 endpoints practically overnight. When this thing first hit and we were kind of shut down in our area, we did something like, I don't know, at least 200 to 300 setups for work from home. And we're talking the right way. And we don't turn things on unless it's done the right way. MFA, VPN. That you got to have that. And but we still did over 200 in like 2 weeks, week and a half, something like that. So, of course, everyone's familiar with Zoom bombing. Zoom has upgraded their game. They really started spending a lot of money on security. So, and then of course, further chaos, and these could be hacktivists and some of the other threat groups that we've talked about in a lot of the webinars, in addition to the nation states and criminal enterprises. Interesting, when you do a denial service attack, that what you're really doing is trying to take down the CDC website, to use that as an example, because they got DOS attacked at a very, very, very large scale about a month ago, I think. Of course, nobody can keep track of time now, but let's say it's a month ago. And what that means is it just gets flooded with internet traffic and it brings it down. Well, chances are it was one of the Russian bear groups like Lazy Bear, Fancy Bear, the criminal or the nation state hacking groups, either that work for the Russian government or are hired by the Russian government to do this chaos stuff. Chances are they use tools and servers provided by the criminal underground, because it was cheap to buy that stuff, right? They don't need to build a server farm of 10,000 servers if they can just buy it for $100 on the dark web. So all of these groups, a lot of them are in cahoots with each other. Some of them are also working against each other. It's like any other criminal organization. They're also seeing, and I think this has hit the headlines on the news, especially vaccine research, intellectual property around that. We've got the pharmaceutical companies, academia, medical research organizations. All of them are being targeted by mostly nation states to steal that intellectual property. I kind of wonder if that's why Russia has a so-called vaccine. I wonder if that was stolen from the US or China. And then if it was stolen from China, did China get their stuff, or did they do it all from scratch? There's a lot of moving parts here. Every day there's something different. Tomorrow there may be a new headline that we never even dreamed of during this webinar. So what do you need to do? This is not going to come as a surprise to anybody on the call. Stay up to date on security training. If you don't have security training, get it. Call us. Send us an email. You know how to reach us. Get continuous security training. If you're not sure how your remote workers are set up, have your IT people call us, or both of you together, whatever, and let's make sure and review it. Because if you're just opening up RDP ports, it's a miracle you haven't already been hacked. And if you don't have good procedures around the device they're using to access the network, it's also surprising that your network hasn't been hacked. And so we're going to use VPN and MFA. There are alternative methods that have varying degrees of security and ease of use, because we know that's important. If we had our druthers, I said this just this morning, we would shut everything down to keep them as secure as possible. But obviously, you can't use a computer if it's 100% secure. It's not even turned on. All these mobile devices, make sure all the data is encrypted. And what you want to pay careful attention to is Windows laptops, because it's only been recently that, actually, I don't even know if it is turned, somebody might know on the call, but I think Macs default to disk encryption, or they strongly encourage it. Of course, an iOS, an iPhone, or an iPad, they have security that is practically unbreakable if you use it. But all the other devices, make sure the data at rest. That means that data that's on that computer when it's in your back floorboard on your way home and you stop at the grocery store to pick up some celery and some tuna fish for the cat. That data, if it's not encrypted at rest and someone steals that laptop, everything that's on there has also been stolen. And likely the remote access setup as well. That's why we do MFA, because if you steal that laptop and you have the credentials and the VPN is ready to go, without that MFA, they still can't get logged in. So you got to do both of those things. There's a lot of other things that have to be considered. We do this day in and day out when we do security assessments, and we have to respond to our environmental conditions. So if you got any questions about this, you can ask them now, send us an email. I think everyone on the call knows the spiel. And Kenzie, I'm going to let you announce what's happening next week.
Okay, yeah. Next Tuesday, of course, at the same time, Tom will be covering securing remote workers.
Ah, right on cue. So we're going to do a deeper dive of this deeper dive on things like VPN and MFA, and I'm going to explain to you what those things are. I'm going to explain it to you the way IronTech does it, and why IronTech does it that way. And we've always done it this way. I know some of you may be using LogMeIn, or I don't know, PC Anywhere is probably not very popular, but LogMeIn, go to my PC. Yeah, the way we do it is cheaper, and we feel like it's better, stronger. It's using technology that's been around 30 or more years, and we just feel more comfortable with it. And there's less moving pieces. I'm not saying if you're using some other solution for that it's bad. But what I am saying is you better make sure you're using every single piece of security, like MFA and everything else, that they allow you to. Because Zoom was set up to be ease of use. That's why it skyrocketed. That's the way they designed it. And when everybody started working from home, that ease of use thing wasn't balanced properly with security. So it made them extremely popular, but it also made them a huge target, just like Windows computers. And then that's when all of these security vulnerabilities were discovered, when they became when their attack surface, just because of the number of installations, dramatically increased. That's when everybody started looking into them and seeing what their security like, and the servers are in China and this, that, and the other. And that's not uncommon, and that's nothing wrong that Zoom did in a way, because they still got to go to market. And in this business, sometimes, you have, well, in any business, you've got to make trade-offs. And that's why I talk about IT being fundamentally opposed to security. Same thing. Security was fundamentally opposed to market pressures on Zoom. It was a balance. They made the wrong call. And they made the wrong call only because of COVID, by the way. Had that never occurred, and this work from home thing didn't explode as fast as it did, who knows when or how, or even if they would have fixed those vulnerabilities. But it wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. We stuck with Zoom as our recommended product, and they performed admirably. So we need to cover anything else, Kenzie?
I don't think so.
All righty. Well, everybody be sure and sign up for that, and bring your IT people, and be happy to answer any questions they've got around remote workforce stuff. There's a couple of other things that we're going to go into as well. So having said that, we will see you next week on a deeper dive.